Hello, everyone. Very good afternoon to you all. Welcome to ABP Education. I am Prabjeet Singh and would like to welcome you all to the next webinar in the Campus to Career series. Before talking about the webinar today, I'd like to introduce to you abpeducation.com. It is a recently launched portal from the Anandabazar Patrika Group, and it is powered by the Telegraph Online and anandabazar.com. And everything that you need to know about the world of higher education, exams, results, students, student communities, and including global universities abroad are covered by abpeducation.com. Now talking about the Campus to Career series. The series started on August 12th with the Bengal Education Leaders Summit with Mr. Partho Chatterjee, the State Education Minister, attending it. And today's subject of today's webinar is A for Aesthetics, Visual Design, and Creative Pursuits. And without any delay, I'd like to introduce to you all the panelists. First on the panel is Kiran Uttam Ghosh, partner, KUG Uttam. She designs wearable art pieces under her label and has trained with British designer Jasper Conran in London. Has been a part of Indian Fashion Week. Next on the panel is Ayush Kasliwal, design thinker and practitioner, an alumnus of National Institute of Design. With his architect wife Gitanjali, Ayush is creative director and co-founder of AKFD and Anantaya, interdisciplinary design companies based in Jaipur. Next on the panel is Priyanka Raja, co-founder of Experimenter. Priyanka co-founded Experimenter in 2009 in Calcutta with her partner Pratik Raja. The gallery represents and fosters the careers of emerging and celebrated artists from South Asia and the world and has garnered international acclaim. Next on the panel, Mr. Vishal C. Bhan, Associate Professor in Design at Visva-Bharati. He has taught at National Institute of Design and made Visva-Bharati the first central university to start a professional design program while he was head of the department of Shilpa Sadhan, Visva-Bharati. Next on the panel is Mr. Amartya Banerjee, Director, NSHM School of Design. Highly accomplished professional offering rich experiences of over 20 years in overseeing higher education management and institution. Building, implementing efficiency improvement measures across core organizational functions. Next on the panel is Satish Narayanan, founder and MD, Design, Media and Edutainment Solutions Private Limited. He has worked at Reliance Animation as the head of intellectual property and has been the director of Maya Academy of Advanced Cinematics, Chennai. Now, viewers, we have a short video before I introduce to you the moderator of the session. Welcome back, and now it's time to introduce our moderator, Mr. Swaroop Datta, multidisciplinary art and design practitioner, photographer, and scenographer. Has been head of the Fashion and Textiles Design Department and was the Dean of Academics at Indian Institute of Crafts. Mr. Datta has conceptualized and curated the India Story, an annual event of Indian art, design, crafts, music, and culinary practices in Canada. With this, I'd like to hand over the session to Mr. Swaroop Datta. Have a great one.
Hello. So, hello everyone. Welcome you to this session, which is going to talk about the genesis of visual aesthetics, about visual aesthetics and art, and we will also look at, the multitude of professions perhaps that have opened up, with new opportunities, and we would also look at different career paths that youngsters can take um, in today's world. As we see, with the pandemic, a lot of things are changing. The way we are perceiving things are also changing, and the whole dynamics in terms of marketing of things, the way our products are presented is also changing. And it would be interesting to see what our professionals think about these changes and how we can adapt ourselves, towards the market. Uh, I would like to start off with Kiran. Uh, Hi, Kiran.
Hi, Swaroop. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Kiran. So, Kiran, I wanted to ask you something, which, which was the year that you started practicing?
I feel like a dinosaur. I'm not going to tell you that. It's over 2 decades.
Yeah, so I remember when I was at design school. This would be 95, 96. Kimono was already available and was making splashes. So it's been a long fruitful journey. But what I wanted to understand was that, you see, from when we started. I'm sorry I'm clubbing you, because it's around the same time, maybe 1 or 2 years here and there that we started. How do you think the skill sets have changed from there to now? Do you think that, like, from what was the requirement then to what is the requirement now has changed drastically, or you still need the same set of skills?
I think to start out with, at that time, if you were in fashion, right, you were a rock star. Today, I don't really tell everyone I'm in design. If someone tells me, what do you do? I say I'm in business, because the usual answer when I say I'm a fashion designer, I say, oh, my mother's a fashion designer, my wife's a fashion designer, I'm a fashion designer. There's, I guess, just too many people who are in fashion. I'm not saying that's not the problem with other careers, but I'm just alluding to what I'm familiar with. So I think that means there's a lot of competition, and like in other careers, but I find what has changed is that the people cannot differentiate with so much competition. People aren't able to differentiate between good design and mediocre design. Right. So that so what you stand for really is diluted, right? If you're a good designer. So I think that has changed now. Everyone's a designer, good, bad, very mediocre. So all you need is a Bollywood actress to wear your garment. And then this hideous looking garment gets 1 lakh likes, and it becomes rage. And you're like looking at it and saying, oh my God, I have to leave this career. But that is what is extremely hot and flying off the racks. So that's, that's one of the things. That apart, I think even, even importance of like social media. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me, Kiran?
Can you hear me, Swaroop?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So also the So you were asking me about the skill sets, right, that we needed, or how it's changed.
How it's changed
from then to now.
From then to now. And like, say, if you look at an assistant who would join your company, what are the skill sets that you think are very essential now, which maybe were not so essential before?
I'm not able to hear you, Swaroop. Sorry, is my line weak?
I can hear you, Kiran.
Swaroop?
Yeah, Kiran, I'm here.
Yeah, so I didn't hear the last part. Yeah,
I said that,
you
yeah,
said.
you know, what kind of skill set do you think you would like an assistant to possess, or skill sets that, you know, maybe were required before and not required anymore, or vice versa? Because this whole discussion is geared towards, you know, aspirant design students, you know, art and design
Absolutely.
students. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, like I said earlier, you would just whatever so now I think also, for example, uh, it's very important that you can also connect with the karigar
Right.
like before, but at the same time, I find earlier there's too much at the moment. There's too much currently angst at the grassroots level.
Right.
So I find someone who's, we've always said common sense is important, but I find most of my team is actually in fashion becoming a shrink to our karigars, to their families, to make sure that things are moving, because everyone's been traumatized by this whole area. That's something we never thought. The student was someone that just needed passion. They needed to be able to sketch. It was today you need to be able to stay calm. You need to be able to really be that psychiatrist to your karigar and say, nahi bhaiya, ye theek ho jayega. Right?
So you
And
think human connect is becoming more important? Is it?
far more important. Yeah. People have lost their livelihoods. They are begging for work. I'm sure everyone in the craft business will agree with that, you know? And I think common sense is more so required now than ever before. Earlier, if you were a crazy, you know, I'd say this assistant is crackers, but she's really good and she can style properly. No, common sense needs to be there. You know, you can't be casual about things, because it's a very, everyone's in a very sensitive frame of mind. And at the same time, deadlines still remain, right? You still have to deliver, and there's lockdowns, there are dates, flights are not working, couriers are having issues. So there's a lot more that has to be managed. You know, it's, I've always said it's not a glamorous business, and I say that more so today.
Yeah, I think with those couple of days of glamour, the amount of hard work, I too sometimes feel it's too much.
It is. I say always, you have to be crazy or really a lover of fashion, of calm clothes and fashion, to survive this business. Because it really, it's not what's on the fashion shows. It's really much, 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 much more than that. Only crazy people will survive here.
I think thanks, Kiran. I'll take this question to Ayush. Ayush, you know, like, again, when we started off, fashion seems to be the one which would be most glamorous, right? But now even product designers, interior designers, like there are stars in every field. Now, how do you see that things have changed from the point you started and now? You know, what's the transition like? You've also been, you know, involved in education. You often go and sort of mentor so many kids. What do you see? How things have changed for us?
You know, things have changed drastically. When I started, you know, when my parents would go to a wedding and somebody would ask, you know, "Acha, beta kya kar raha hai?" They'd say that he's a designer, and then the other person would say, "Acha," you know, like it's some in contrast, some sort of disease that the kid has or something like that. Then it
I must
evolved.
tell you that, you know, sorry, I'm just cutting you off. I come from a slightly academic family. So when initially I would say that I do fashion design, so my grandpa would say, "Acha, so in design you can do masters." So I said, "No, it's a diploma." And then they were like, "Oh, it's just a diploma. Like, what are you doing? You know, like you should have done something better." But yeah, the scenarios have changed, right, from then.
Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, the scenario is completely different now. I mean, from being acha, it became acha, he's a carpenter. You know, it
Right.
kind of slowly kind of graduated till, you know, I could say that, okay, I'm a industrial furniture designer. You know, that it took a long time for me to be able to say that, with the other person actually recognizing, you know, what that means.
Right.
But, you know, other than the fact that the profession has got a lot of recognition, I think the opportunities have also mushroomed. You know, when I finished NID in '96 and I came back to Jaipur, um, people weren't even hiring architects.
Right.
You know, forget an industrial designer or industrial furniture designer. And at that time, I had no option but to become a producer. because that is the only way I could actually make any money. Nobody was, paying for a service. The situation, fortunately, has improved marginally. It's not that people want to pay much for a service today either. They still want a tangible product instead of a service, and they're happy to pay more for that.
Right.
That would be advised. But at least it's a progress from where it was. But other than the opportunities and the openness that people have, I think there's this, and here I say it with a, I'm not so sure whether it's that great, is that people have, normal consumers have kind of taken off the hat of intelligence and reasonability and parked it on the architect's or the designer's head, which is often not really taken responsibly. So, while the opportunities have opened up, the reins that keep an opportunity in check for a profession to grow are really not there right now. So, while a designer can do anything they want, but for a profession to grow, that anything has to come with the checks and balances that actually make it grow, that we can sort of build as an institution. So, while the profession is there, the ground support for the profession is not quite there yet. The academic rigor, the pedagogy, the standards that are expected are not there. And as Kiran mentioned, anybody can be a designer right now because there is nothing to measure them by. What is good, what is bad, that as a matter of public discourse or dialogue, that is absolutely missing, which is fine. It's a profession and this dialogue will happen eventually. It has to. But I would say today that that discussion of what is good design is of crucial importance. And as a lot of young students are probably attending this webinar, to actually understand and put your evaluation mechanisms in place is something that happens in the beginning of when you start to learn, where you start evaluating, why am I doing, what am I doing? In terms of a sea change that we've seen is that the world of design has moved from experience to illustration. In the sense the images speak more than the works. We know a lot of furniture designers who make something that looks very beautiful, but might not really work. Because
that's a very interesting point. Absolutely. And we would discuss this whole notion of, sort of style versus content, eventually, because it also sort of penetrates not only design, but also art. So, maybe we can just sort of, take views across the plane. But what I also wanted to ask you, Ayush, is the fact that, you were trained as an industrial designer, and then you shifted gear and you've kind of incorporated sort of so much of craft techniques, that are available in and around. How did that happen? Because when you study industrial design, there's a certain rigor and focus. And then when you start sort of taking crafts into the foray, that requires a very different kind of a mindset. And I thought, that would be curious for the students to understand.
So, when we were studying at NID, the idea of industrial design was there were two disciplines, product design and furniture design.
Right.
And product design really covered the aspect of mass production, producing in vast quantities. And what furniture design covered was producing in smaller batches.
Right.
When I finished NID, there was really no furniture industry to talk about. So I did not find a job that I wanted to do. People were being absorbed in the film industry, making sets, working in architects' offices, but no pure furniture as such.
Right.
So I had little resort but to see what I can find around me. And fortunately, being in Jaipur, I was, as you are in Calcutta, we have things being made in every nook and corner. So, I literally felt like, that Willy Wonka in his chocolate factory. Right. So I felt like that in Jaipur. Okay, I can do this, I can do that, I can try this, I can try that. It's like really exciting, and so that is kind of how it started. And once I kind of refined it to a level that I knew it would work, we've kind of built our systems, our production methods, accordingly to factor in crafts.
Interesting. Cool. So I'll go to Vishal. Vishal, because we're talking about crafts, we also wanted to understand how and what kind of techniques and sort of crafts and processes, material and processes, do you kind of introduce students to at Kala Bhavan, at Shilpa Sadan? And is it different from the way art is taught, or are there sort of overlaps in pedagogy, the way you guys deal with sort of material and processes in art versus design? Vishal, can you hear me?
Vishal's mute right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you
Hi,
hear me?
Vishal. Yeah, I can hear you, Vishal. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I heard your question.
Right.
As far as Visva-Bharati is concerned, uh, I was teaching at NID, and then I realized that we don't teach design in universities the way China is doing, for that matter. We have so many design institutes in China. That's why you see so many design Chinese products in Indian market.
Right.
So it was a battle with UGC to make them understand that fine arts is different from design.
Right.
And design is a separate entity. So in 2010, we pushed it, lobbied it, and then BDes, Bachelor of Design nomenclature was added in list of approved degrees in UGC.
Lovely.
And that's when design got into university arena.
Right.
Before that, you see NID. NID is not a university. Earlier, maybe now they have special status, but otherwise you don't see universities teaching design. So that is one of the bigger lacuna in our system. Also, the fact that you're talking about pedagogy. Kala Bhavan is Institute of Fine Arts.
Right.
And Shilpa Sadan can be seen as Institute of Design in Visva-Bharati. Though they have similar subjects. Ceramics is taught in Kala Bhavan as well, but ceramics is taught in Shilpa Sadan as well. Textile is there in Kala Bhavan, textile is there in Shilpa Sadan. But the objective behind Sriniketan was Tagore was somewhere unhappy with Shantiniketan. So he started another campus in Sriniketan, which will actually work with rural areas hand in hand and not become upmarket boarding school, which Shantiniketan became eventually. And then he started all the discipline that would closely work with rural sector and rural craftsmen. So everything, right from producing oil to dairy products to making tiles, chula, which is mud oven, वो भी बनाता थे शिल्प सदन में, tiles, bags, rugs. So everything that is required by a villager was produced in Shilpa Sadan, including furniture. So what we did is all university needs furniture, university needs textile, university needs ceramics, university needs paper. So we produce everything. We get order from university. We produce all this in Shilpa Sadan. All these projects come as a classroom project. Say for instance, there is a hostel coming up and they need 200 beds. So what we did, we take this order and give it in a classroom project in furniture design. So,
and so it's also super hands-on, right? The students are not only learning it, but they're making it with their own hands.
Yes, so you have 10 students, 10 prototypes of cot. Then we call Dean of Student Welfare. You select which one you like. And this is produced by craftsmen in the rural areas. We have made self-help groups. So this is not produced by students, but production is done by rural craftsmen. So हम चिराई कर देते हैं, design दे देते हैं, and they are working under this faculty and under this student. So they supervise everything. So this is how we differentiate Kala Bhavan versus Shilpa Sadan. Although both are creative domains, but they should not be confused. The approach is very much design oriented in Shilpa Sadan versus fine arts in Kala Bhavan.
Thanks, Vishal.
So it's much more hands-on experience.
Right, absolutely. So I take this question further down to Priyanka. Hi, Priyanka.
Hi.
Priyanka, you guys at Experimenter have dwelled in fine arts, but now you're also looking at sort of design domains as a part of expression, right? With the new space. When you're looking at both these areas, do you see overlaps between art and design, or do you see they're fairly sacrosanct? And in today's sort of current scenario, do you think in the West, because there's a lot of a lot of interaction that you have from people across the globe, do they see it as two different sort of professions, or are there kind of cross currents and overlaps, do you see?
So from the perspective of what we show and how we think of overlaps, these are clear silos. Fine arts and design are clear silos, and one doesn't sort of think of them as one sort of big, big cloud. But can they be seen together? Can they be presented together? Can they be collaborated amongst each other? Certainly they can. But Experiment as a gallery shows visual art or performing arts or something which is quite defined within the fine arts realm. Right. But time and again, we have, presented design practices, but then again, in that same sort of very sort of robust way of thinking about design. So, and galleries globally, whether it's museums in the West or even right now as we speak, there a Delhi-based private museum, the Kiran Museum, is doing a whole week of an art and design collaboration. Right. And it isn't uncommon at all. So yes, there are lines that will blur together to work in collaborative forms, but I do see them as separate fields that both need to be, learned and practiced separately.
So to take this forward, do you see that there are possibilities of switches, from somebody being an artist, also attempting design and vice versa? And do you see, like initially when you would think of a fine arts practice, a lot of time, especially, families from middle class background wouldn't know, like as to how would you earn money and what's your area of income? Do you see that perception changing? Do you think there are more sort of possible ways that you can earn a living, through practice of arts than it was before? Has the medium become more democratic? Are more people practicing it and are aware of it? They're acquiring art more than they did before. What's your thoughts on that?
Right. To understand that, we'll have to understand the infrastructure of any country, including ours. Right. So for example, from say a fine arts student, every single year from our country, there are thousands of students who pass out, who finish their BFA, MFA, and then they figure out what they want to do, how they want to practice. Right. Very many of them, I can imagine, want to just practice, just continue their practice. Right. But how many commercial galleries are there in the country or even the world? And I don't specifically single out India, though we're abysmal in infrastructure. There are, good focused commercial galleries that, operate in an international sort of platform. There are literally in your 10 fingers, you can count them for a country as large as 1.4 billion. But even in the West, I don't single this out just as a problem within our context, right. But even in the West, the number of sign-ups of representations or first exhibitions by people who can further their career to the number of pass outs are not matched in any way whatsoever. Right. So then what happens to, say, after the 3 students who were signed up in that right. batch, what happens to 2,500 others from the different fields, that, whether it's sculpture or applied arts or visual arts or painting, sculpture, whatever. They figure out what else they can do. So it could be design, it could be set design, it could be furniture design, it could be multiple. Nowadays, there are so many organizations, even corporates, who have art school students who join corporate teams to do a visualization right. department project, or there are very specific.
So you're saying the skill set that you acquired can be adopted to many other sort of fields that was not perhaps available before, right?
No, yes, that's what I was saying. So before my stint at Experimenter, which is now, 12 or 13 years, I used to work in the corporate world. Right. My last job was at Procter & Gamble, and I was the media manager at the time. And even then, and this is a good decade and a half ago, right. that there were separate departments within our advertising. Of course, Procter & Gamble in India didn't do any of their creative processes in-house. Most of it would happen through the agency partners. Even then, there were fine art school students or design school students who were joining in for specific projects.
Right.
And you and I have often talked about the need for an exhibition designer as opposed to the curator,
Right.
the person who writes, the writer, but also an exhibition designer who sort of makes you feel something, orally, sensorially, when you walk across an exhibition. And those roles, these are all fairly new, possibly all emerging within the last decade, but they're there. So we can talk more in detail,
Sure.
but there are many sort of silos that these, graduates from art and design schools now can pursue, which were not the case, say even 5-7 years ago.
Thanks, Priyanka. Because we're talking about choices in the area of visual arts and design, I wanted to take the next question to Amartada. Amartada, hi. Amartada, I wanted to ask you something that, NHSM as
Hi, Sharup, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Amartada?
Good.
So, Amartada, I was going to ask you that, NHSM as a college provides so many sort of varied specializations. And when students come to you and they want to choose a career, are they confused about which path? Because, you may not come in thinking you exactly want this sort of, area. And then are there possibilities of switch over later that, that if I come into, let's say, fashion, and after doing a year, I say, no, maybe I want to do graphic design, that people can switch over. And is there a process of counseling that they go through when they come in, for them to basically understand the, specializations better and then figure out, which one they want to pursue?
I think it's a very, very interesting discussion going on here. And the way design education has evolved over the last 15 years. And this has been a fantastic journey in design education, and I have, addressed about 500 seminars in schools and colleges where I've gone, 500 plus across the country, and have spoken to varied kind of audiences coming from different, socio-cultural backgrounds.
Right.
And my standard question has been, why do you want to do design? So what in design would you want to go in for?
Right.
And 80% of the responses have been fashion design, because fashion design as a nomenclature is extremely popular.
Sure.
Right? And people actually do not have much idea about, let's say, a product design or a communication design or industrial design. And also, so that gives me an opportunity to enlighten the crowd. Right. So that's one. Second is when people come in, and you see NSHM, at NSHM we give a 3-year course.
Right.
Prior to this, when I was in Pearl, where we gave a 4-year course,
right,
where the zero year was a foundation year. And this so when people come in and we say, oh, are you sure you want to go in for fashion design or communication design or interior architecture design or whatever design they said they wanted to go in for, this entire opinion would actually change 60% post the 6 months of the foundation program. So and because the 6 months, so foundation is a 1-year program. Across the globe, all design schools have a 4-year course. Right? And in India, we still have universities actually offering, so that's the bigger discussion, is that BDES is actually a nomenclature. So, we are still kind of stuck up with UGC regulatory body nomenclatures, where you say a BDES cannot be a 3-year program, it has to be a 4-year program.
Right.
Right? And university can only offer a 3-year program. Right. Anyway, so this entire confusion kind of gets little clear in kind of 6 months into the program.
Great.
That's a 6 months of foundation course, and there are many people who switch over, So let's say they came in to become a fashion designer, and then post the foundation course, they say, no, not fashion design. I probably want to go for architecture design or product design or communication design. Well, we run a 3-year course, so we do not have a scope of running a 1-year foundation. right? So so that's a tragedy, and that's just not with us. All courses which are running a university program, which are 3-year program, you do not have a scope to run a foundation course. And I believe that this foundation course is extremely important, because you have come from arts, you have come from science, you have come from commerce, and you did not know what design was. So that entire process, that germination of the design process,
Right.
the ideation process, design concept, that takes time. So that's why, when these people actually go to the industry and they tell us, well, they don't know too much about the design process, I said, not their fault. They did not get a lot of time to learn that. And that's a long process, you can't teach them. That cannot be a capsule course. So
Right.
people have to come in and, so begin exploring mediums, materials, thoughts, aesthetics. So what is aesthetics? It's a very common word, right?
Sure.
We keep on saying aesthetically you are not very bright. Okay, but when you get into a design course, and probably 6 months down the line or 1 year down the line, you actually realize that what actually aesthetic means.
Yeah,
And,
sure.
and then
Also,
and then you start applying it.
true.
In fact,
Adding on to that, what also happens is, I think so many of the students, they also come from fairly sort of, a setup which is so, based on confirmation, right? You have to conform to your parents. You have to conform
completely.
and suddenly you come to a sort of a design college and you've been told to think independently. Like it just doesn't happen overnight. You have to give it time.
Absolutely. And
on one end you're saying sab kuch suno, sabki baat suno, sabko respect karo. The other end you're like, this go original, think something out of the box. And I don't know how that happens in a day or two. It requires some amount of time, for you
absolutely.
to hear.
And so you've come out of an education system where you were told that anything less than 90 was bad.
Exactly.
Okay, so and then they come and start asking you, so when is the first semester examination? So what are the kind of notes? Okay, so that takes time, so that entire process of unlearn,
do you think
learn,
there's still
and
a lot
relearn.
of focus on so-called marks? How much have we got?
Surely, and that takes a lot of time. That entire change of mental orientation. That entire process of unlearning them takes about 4 months.
Right.
Trying to get them out of that mental setup where we actually tell them, boss, it is not about your semester exams anymore. We are not doing class tests here, and you're not running for a 90% plus.
Right.
Right. The recruiter does not even want to have a look at your mark sheet. He's more
actually, this is very, very, very
portfolio.
interesting that you bring this up, because I don't see any design college really looks at the mark sheet,
Nobody does.
Nobody does.
They only want your portfolio.
They just want to see, exactly. What you could
they only want to. So this and now, so this and this entire cliche around design thinking. I think there has to be a change. It's no more design thinking. It's actually you have to redesign thinking.
Sure.
And
that's
you
interesting.
you have to redesign. So it's not about design thinking. It's about redesign thinking and then thinking design.
Right. Fair enough.
So that actually takes a lot of time, and then that is not possible in just about 3 months, 4, because the entire the process of getting them sync mentally
into
a program.
From my sort of like little bit experience from teaching, I also feel that sometimes it's not even possible in the couple of years that they're at the institute. I think these are only places where you can germinate the seed. How it will grow, it just takes much, much longer than that. But I have seen fruition happening, after 6 years, 7 years, and you're amazed by what these kids, who were struggling at one point, eventually end up producing. And you're like, wow, it just takes a longer trajectory. But also, the kind of culture we are, how many parents really take their kids to see art exhibitions or for museum visits, the amount is abysmally low. And so our orientation to a certain kind of aesthetics is very less. So first is that you have to get them to understand and develop their faculties. Only then can they, sort of explore, experiment, find themselves. So it just seems to be a much longer journey as opposed to, let's say, the West, countries where this is almost a regular phenomena, right? From school as
I
a part
want
of
to
the
say
curriculum.
something. Yeah,
Sorry.
so I want to add to what you're saying, parents taking their kids to art exhibition. So
Right.
please let me share this with my panel here and the audience, that design is still not one of the top 10 career options in our country. It is not. It isn't. Right? And,
right.
And even 2 years back, parents came to me, father is a doctor, mother is a chartered accountant.
Right.
The daughter wanted to do fashion design. And so I was talking to the parents, and while the daughter went out to have a look at the campus, the father said, "Sir, ये तो ठीक है, fashion design इसका शौक है, करना चाहती है, मैं सोच रहा हूँ साथ में CA भी करवा दूँ." No, seriously, and these are enlightened parents.
No, but that
these are
now with
enlightened
cross-specialization, that's
parents.
also a possibility, I guess.
Yeah, so I was very intrigued by the conversation between you and Ayush.
Right.
Where you said that Ayush, what you're doing now probably has little connection to your training.
Right.
This entire interdisciplinary approach. Swarup, for example, you yourself, right? So you are actually a truly interdisciplinary designer. So you've been trying to do. So the common link is design.
Right.
Right. So this entire thought process is extremely important, and we as design educators or even industry people in design, there's a larger responsibility to enlighten the crowd.
Yeah, I also feel that, the country we live in, because of the way we've in social formats also have tried to super specialize in certain areas, there is a fear of generalization. That if you remain in the general space, what will happen? But the dichotomy is that at the end, you also don't really master skill sets. So it's a strange space. So while you want your kids to be specialists, eventually they don't dwell in it. Our interaction with material and actually doing things is so little that it gets difficult. I want to ask something to Satish. Hi, Satish. Sorry, caught you at a point. You can have your drink. Satish, I wanted to ask you that do you think there is, with the advent of social media, do you think there is an overtly excessive focus on visuals and we are not looking at all our other senses? That design as a field is also multi-sensory, but as Ayush was saying that like now the look is very important, that if the chair needs to look nice, it doesn't matter if you feel nice sitting on it, but the first pitching point is visual. Do you think there is an overtly we overtly emphasizing visual as opposed to all our other sensory needs?
Good. So first of all, very good afternoon to all the panelists, and thank you so much for ABP for having me here. And it's always good to have the last speaker so that you can get to listen to all the other speakers and amazing artists out there. They're sharing their experience. And I will answer to your questions, but to touch upon most of the questions which I've asked, I would like to really take you through a story of my journey, like multidisciplinary approach, which Mr. Banerjee was talking, and he was talking about having a 2 years of a strong foundation. So I've just related myself, I'm the perfect person sitting here because I did my graduation in Chennai, College of Fine Arts. So I completed during 1994. So I was in 89 to 94 batch. So we had 5 years of a BFA program, wherein first 2 years is the foundation actually.
Right.
So that strong foundation, today the topic is about A for aesthetics. But those days, it's not A for aesthetics. It was A for artistic approach, actually. So that is where the entire thing started. Because each and every aspects, whatever you're doing, so we need to do it manually. So imagine almost 28 years ago, so there is no digital world, there is no Google, there is no digital camera, nothing. So what all these fine arts colleges have taught, the real hands-on artistic approach to each and every work which we do, actually. So that is what made her as a perfect artist. And that gave us excellent insight about the aesthetic knowledge. So our college is morning, like it starts at 8:30 to 2:30 is the college timing that time. So as you all know, all of you have come from the design college and BFA college. So it's more of a practical oriented. You don't have to really sit and do some work there. So all that you have to submit the assignment. So I started working in ad agency since 1992 actually as a visualizer, because I took a part-time job. I go from the college at around 3 o'clock and started going to advertising agency. Just wanted to really learn exactly what is this world about. So the first question which I've asked, what is the transformation in these 2 decades? I've seen huge amount of transformation. It's basically those days, any layout. Today I represent as a speaker in this forum as a graphic designer, but multidisciplinary. I'll tell you what all I have done.
Sure.
But as a graphic designer, when I started my career, it is more of, I don't know, most of you might be knowing actually, there is no Photoshop, there is no softwares like today actually. Everything you'll have to do manually. So even if you have to design a letter pad or a visiting card, you used to put a bromide black and white paper. All the fonts are printed actually, and using a rubber solution, you'll have to create that small artwork, and then that you have to take negative and positive.
Satish, I'm really glad that you're touching upon it. You know, I mean, a lot of time I would teach at foundation courses. And,
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
Make them do lines, and then if it just goes like slightly wonky, and then they'll come and say, "Why do I have to do this? I have a sort of a Corel Draw. You know, of course that's fairly obsolete now, but I have Corel Draw to do this. You know, why are you making me do this?" And of course, we would say that, you know, like, first you need to get your eyes trained.
So that's what I'm saying, that the real aesthetics we have learned there, because even I'm talking about not only the visiting card, even if we have to design ad creatives, it is manually done. So we have to pick up some pictures,
everything,
and then background has to be sprayed actually, the gradient, airbrush sprayed actually. Then properly, the presentation skills also you learn. You need to put it mounted actually, flap. Then you'll have to submit it to the client. So that's the way we've learned, the traditional way. So those days, even if you have to learn photography, it's very hard, because you need to understand the actual aspects of the aperture, shutter speed and all those things, because you will not be able to see the result. It is only 36 mm roll.
Now the miracle is the auto, you know, the auto.
You click it in the selfie and you delete it if you don't like it. But today, I don't know how many of the younger generation kids have seen that real film itself. They have not seen it. If they've seen that, then they would have been amazed actually. What is this all about? So that's how we learned the photography. We ourselves have printed in black and white things. So from that journey to today, the entire A for aesthetic is replaced by more of a Google thing. So for today, if we wanted to do anything, so we are actually comparing with in the internet. We do some benchmarking. We could take some references, and here and there we just actually do certain changes, color changes, and we create the thing. But the traditional way of learning, once I completed, I did industrial design and specialized in textiles actually. So after I passed out, and then I got an opportunity to, so 3-4 years I worked in ad agency while I was studying in college. Then after, when 94, when I passed out, I got an opportunity to work as a textile designer in a home furnishing company. Right. So around 3.5 years, I started as a designer, textile designer, and I promoted up to merchandiser. Those days I used to travel Hem Textile, France, Japan Tex, and all those things. So that one fine day, I realized I'm a hardcore artist. I'm very passionate about art. I used to sell my paintings, actually, a lot of art galleries kind. But somehow, once I got into the merchandising aspect of it, there is no more an art. It is more of a managerial, talking to the client, closing the deal. So this is the kind of approach. That's when this Titanic film released in 1998. So when I was watching the Oscar Award program on the television channel, so those 5 visual effects supervisors stood on the stage and they said, "We are the king of VFX actually." So I resigned my job and I came into this animation visual effects field actually, during that time. So then since then I've been working in multiple projects actually. So I'm in the education field also, and I moved to Pune almost 14 years ago and joined as a animation producer for Reliance Animation. So then my journey started again, like graphic designing. So though I've been working in animation visual effects for a very long time, so I don't know how many of you've been in creative field, how many of you know there is a skills Olympics happens for all these skills which we are talking about: graphic design, web designing, and 3D digital game art. So around 2012, Government of India has, came to our Reliance Animation. They were looking out for some partner, skilled person who can train some candidates to represent our country at the World Skills International.
Right.
So nobody was willing to do that. So my CEO gave me an opportunity at that time, and I took that opportunity. And I was actually going through the rules and regulations of World Skills. I was first time I myself have did a research, then discovered it is there for almost 60 years, but India has never participated in this.
Right.
So 2013 is the first time India represented, sent a candidate for graphic designing. So I am the coach for that boy, and I am the trainer. So I trained him as a graphic designing. First time we won with gold medal and medallion of excellence in 2013. Since then, it's been almost 6 years. This is the only skill, graphic design is the only skill we've been winning consecutive medals for the country. And last year is one of the highest medal which we have got. That is bronze medal in World Skills Russia.
Congratulations.
Thank you, World Skills Russia. So the candidate, she has passed out from National Institute of Design, where Ayush was talking about. She was a graduate from National Institute of Design, graphic design graduate. And she was the national winner in India. And I'm supposed to train her for almost 1 year to take her to the international level. So imagine a 4 years graduate from National Institute of Design. If I have to train her, the kind of caliber and the kind of knowledge which I should possess. So that was a great challenge which I have taken. And we both have trained very hard, almost like 2000 plus hours I used to train her in my studio in Pune actually. Wow. So my own academy. So together, we have achieved the highest pinnacle, first time ever in India. A girl, she has won a bronze medal for the country. And
I also won some tea, Ayush.
Yes, when I started involved in this, the biggest learning which I personally had as an expert. So this World Skills Championships, when you go there, you find almost about 40 different countries, national champions competing there. It's unlike the sports.
Fantastic.
Only from one candidate from one country can represent. So
right.
From India, Sweta was there. Similarly, for graphic designing, 39 candidates, national champions were there. And these are all time-bound tasks. 4 days is the championship, total 22 hours. She has to complete first day corporate identity design. Second day, she has to do book illustrations. And she has to take printout and she has to make the presentation also. Third day, she has to do packaging design. Fourth day, she has to do advertising design.
Right.
Imagine in any ad agency scenario, if you give these 4 projects, they'll take it for almost 2 months.
Sure.
The 2 months project, she has to execute it in 20 hours. That too, she has to take printout and present. So that is the level of skill sets which we have to fine tune. There are around 500 plus criteria. In order to score 100 marks, a candidate 0.25, 0.15, 500 criteria are there. Every criteria you'll have to score marks to win a medal actually.
Right.
And she has lost gold medal in 1.25 marks. The gold medal is won by Chinese Taipei, silver medal is won by Austria, and India is the gold medalist. So 1.25 marks is the difference. And there are a lot of debate happens. Like today we have around 5-6 panelists, all of them are creative people. Similarly, we have around 37 experts from different countries. All of them are world's best graphic designers. They represent their country as an expert and they do the jury part of it. So there are a lot of discussion happens, debate happens, there is fight happens actually because the project is not Indian centric. Because it's a global competition, the project is a global centric. The candidate have to understand each and every country's color, different types of design motives. She needs to be really thorough. So when we train here in Pune, in my academy, so what we train is about the global culture, global design principles, different types of color in different countries. So these are the aspects actually. So my job is to zero down her errors. So fortunately, my wife is also from a BFA background. She runs the academy. And having said that's like a passion and something I'm doing it for the country, which like not much of a remuneration.
That's a very, very interesting.
Yeah, but I still
that you touched upon, Satish.
Yeah, but still I continue my passion in the visual effects. That's where I'm running this studio called Nectar Pixels VFX Studios. We have been doing world-class animation and visual effects projects through these studios. So it's not that I'm restricted to only one particular area. Like that 2 years foundation and 5 years of that BFA has given me a tremendous amount of insight in terms of what is A for aesthetics. And so all these days, how, if you have the basic sense, creative sense and basic creative knowledge, how you can effectively use all these digital media. So that is what the younger generation students have to learn nowadays.
That's very interesting, Satish. I mean, I think also you've stumbled upon a very, very important aspect, which is that we need to have individuals who come in, because now if you come into a company and you're working, or even if you're working with startups, you need a variety of skill sets. And sometimes we find that there's a lacuna in the skill sets that are available. So I wanted to take this question to Kiran and then to Ayush. Kiran, you know, when sort of fresh graduates come to you, you know, with their portfolios, with a lot of ideas, do you find that there is a gap between what the industry requires and the skill set they possess? Do you feel that they are or not adequately skilled, you think? And I'll take this question to Ayush
yes,
after this. You know, I'd like to know you. Yeah, Kiran.
Our first task with someone who comes in that's new, a youngster that comes in from college, is to teach them, to actually teach them how to solve problems. You give them scenarios where things have gone wrong, or you make things go wrong for them, because they need to learn that they will fail. They have to fail forward. It's about picking yourself up, brushing your back, looking at where what damage is done, looking at who saw you, and then figuring, okay, I've got to survive this. At the same time, even things like, does this made a good design? It's not about just good design. It is also, is it going to sell? At the end of the day, we are a company that has to sell the product to be able to make the business run, right? So that's very often students come in and they're like, but ma'am, it's good design. I said, I'm not asking you to compromise on it. I'm asking you to adapt, to figure out as a designer how you can make it a fabulous design. At the same time, it has to be economically viable for someone to want to buy it. So, I mean, and there's numerous challenges. Also waste management. I mean, you cut a fabric, you chuck half of it out. Why would you want to waste? Our planet does not need waste. We don't need waste. Today, we would pay a premium to have, if schools and was mentioning, schools and colleges included how to coordinate waste management into design. And it's not just a designer who's interested in that, for everybody. You know, you have cut pieces from everywhere. We used to make patchwork jackets. A lot of this full fabric is just wasted otherwise, right? Yeah, so we do all of that in the first 6 months. Otherwise, whoever's department I send the designer, the student to, they chuck them out in a month and say, we can't work, either we are leaving or you keep her. So everyone knows, new intern in or new student in, or even someone with like less than a month's experience anywhere, then they have to go through this rigor, this thing of survival. Otherwise, you know, it's very difficult for them also. We've had a student, in fact, from NIFT who burst out crying one day. She said, you know what? It's a lovely college, but they sent us here, tell us that we are John Galliano. And actually, when we come here, we realize we can't even put a garment together that sells. And I felt so bad for that child. You know, I was like, you know, that's so true. It's not her fault. It's us, right? With due respect to it. And I think the rest of the world also is money. You're thinking of the money of the garment. Well, if the garment's going to cost $1 lakh and it's just a kurta, nobody's going to buy it.
Who's going to buy it?
Right? So, yeah. And I learned most of that with you at the other side as the teacher, by the way, and sending me the students.
So Ayush, what's been your experience with young graduates who come in? Because you also work with artisans, you know, which is fairly an unorganized sector, and kids mostly come from a fairly sort of a structured format, right, in terms of learning and sort of delivering. When they come to your studio and then they have to liaison with artisans, you know, who have a mind of their own way of sort of talking, dealing with, you know, and also there are cultural differences. How do you think the kids mitigate it? You know, do you kind of orient them to take this challenge up? You know, are there some who are better with human sort of, you know, skills that adapt to this better, and some really, you know, can't? And Yeah, so your thoughts?
The thing is that whenever a new student or employee comes in, I think it's time for us as an organization to learn what they are about. You know, everything fits, provided it's the right place for them. And I think that is, it's a two-way traffic. I personally don't think it's fair for a person to come in and we fit them in whichever empty block we have, because then we miss on the possibilities that they themselves are.
Right.
You know, that said, as Kiran said, you know, the sense of entitlement that a lot of students come up with is ridiculous. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, they come with like, oh, I'm, you know, as, you know, Kiran said, Galliano, you know, sorry, you know, the capacity to listen, observe is perhaps the first and most important thing, which is so missing in a lot of students. So one of the first things that we see in any person is how good are their observation. Can they get insights? Because, you know, in the world of design, an insight is the starting point. You know, what is the insight that you get from the material or from the person or from the situation or from the client that you can build upon? So I think this particular skill of observing is something which is a crucial skill that any design college must probably get the students to be involved in. Also, the act of critical thinking. So, as you know, earlier, you know, some of the panelists talked about, you know, being able to figure out what is good. It requires a good deal of critical thinking as to analyzing why. You know, and it is in the world of talking to yourself and seeing what parameters you're talking about, what are your beliefs. Everything we do, everything we say is based upon a belief that we have as individuals, as a person. We sometimes assume the rest of the world has the same. It may not. And that is really what becomes a challenge in communication. So to know where your thought is springing from and how it's probably going to land on somebody else, that really is the key to being able to communicate design and to know whether the design works. It might work in a situation, it might not work in another situation because it just lands differently. So I think this aspect of critical thinking, it comes not by you know, seeing magazines or seeing glossy pictures. It comes by reading, by listening, and as you know, we earlier talked about, going to museums, knowing what is beautiful and why it is beautiful. Because when, you know, a group of people call something beautiful, that means it is sitting on a common belief structure.
Right.
So we get more and more attuned
That's
to
a very interesting point. Sure.
So what is it that all of us believe in is really what makes all of us find something beautiful. So it's not like we're not talking about a skill of drawing. It's not a skill per se, but yet it is the bedrock of anyone who's done anything in design. You know, I often say that, you know, sometimes it is the skill of looking sideways that becomes crucial. You know, it's not, you know, if you put a target and you race towards target, you're done. That's one way of doing it, yes. But when you look sideways and you see all the magic that you're passing by, and how do you take that in? And here is where I feel that design in India, where it should probably be, is, you know, as Vishal was also saying about working in rural India. You know, very often designers think they need to work only to the top of the pyramid. And for us,
yeah, I think that's a gross misunderstanding of the profession of design itself, because
absolutely,
you know, depending on which area, what you're attending, you know, which in sort of the hierarchy of design, where you fit in, the roles change. So there is no sacrosanct role.
Right.
But
and
I think,
also who do you really call your client? So in our practice, our client is actually the artisan. Right. What can I do to get them more work? And that is kind of how we look at how we work. How can I get something, you know, something the person has always been making? How can we value increase that by design is the question that we ask. So in that sense, the artisan is my customer, you know, in a true sense.
Thanks, Ayush. Priyanka, you know, you work with a lot of young artists, right, who sort of come into the gallery and you take them into the fold. What kind of challenges do you go through with them, you know, from sort of their academic understanding to finally, you know, sort of imbibing a certain practice and then delivering that, you know? What kind of challenges do you go through with young individuals?
So we actually follow the young artists for a while before we actually sign up. So it might be a slow process of 2 or 3 years of just following, talking, sitting around and trying to understand the pulse of the mind, and that's very important. But once that's sort of pre-aligned in our heads that this is workable, then it's a function of a two-way process. There are lots of conversation, backs and forths, seeing more together, but also listening. As Kiran said, the act of failing is so important. Not everything is successful.
That's so beautifully said. Absolutely.
And then even for the younger practitioners, it's all the more important to fail multiple times to then really realize the difference between what is a successful project and what is not. Because if everything is a successful project, and somewhere when you're in the middle of your life, you realize maybe none of them really were. So I think that process is very important. But Swaroop, I actually wanted to bring the conversation to a few of the very crucial questions that some people are asking, that I've studied literature, how can I do art?
Yes, I really,
psychology,
yeah, sure.
how can I do this? And I think, while we talk about this, I think something quite beautiful about this panel, it seems most of us have met each other for the first time, barring a few. We're all cross-disciplinary. So for my own background, I've done psychology and literature at college, and then I worked for a few years, and then I've done an MBA in the UK, and I would have had a corporate career, and I did. And after that, went to Sotheby's in London and did the South Asian Contemporary Arts course. And basically at different points in life, different things happened. And then that makes you want to follow your passion, or if you have a certain sort of focus and fire. So for each of you who are asking us, I want to do this, but I have done the other. If you want to do something, just go and do it. Just follow what your heart wants to do right now. And there is, of course, ample information out there in the internet today, which a lot of us didn't have when we were making our choices of where to study, what to do. So do
Also,
your research.
Priyanka, I think taking this conversation forward, the fact that if you have a sort of varied interests, be it literature, be it art, you could find ways of combining them, and interesting opportunities crop up. I mean, I think with a new way of looking that's getting formalized, where we are looking at cross specialization, and we're looking at not putting all our eggs in the same basket in that sense, because like this crisis has also taught us that like if you have adaptable skills, it's better that then you can adopt a certain skill set with another skill set you have to sort of gear up to the challenges of certain situations that crop up. So
also your specific training, whatever that may be, is your specific skill set that you bring to an organization. So as Kiran said, and I think my primary job, if you ask me what is my key role in my organization, I think I'm a therapist. I'm a therapist to my artists, my team, my whoever. So somewhere that psychology, developmental psychology course worked. Who knew that I had an accent? So of course I studied. And then today, 20 years later, I realized that's the key skill needed in the art world, right? So you never know what you study at whichever point in your life, how you are able to use it later on in your life. So no course is really wasted, if you ask me. It comes together in some way or the other.
So I'll take this conversation to one last point that we wanted to touch upon, and then maybe we'll open it up to sort of answering a couple of questions which have come in. One, of course, is how important in today's sort of art scenario is a certain sense of style, because I wanted to then take this question forward to the whole gamut of design. But let me start from you. How do you see a certain style? Do you think it's an impediment? Do you think it's a language that kind of brings a certain personality? Then it becomes unique. How do you look at this whole notion of style?
Can I start with from student point of view? Is it
yes,
okay?
Yes, absolutely, Vishal. Yes.
First thing I've observed during my teaching profession, students don't draw basic. Yeah. They think they want to be a designer, but they can't draw a straight line. Trust me. And it's really bad. I can't explain. It's beyond comprehension. They want to do this and that, and they can't draw a straight line. Trust me. I've seen thousands of examples, and I see every year. Then they do dream, no dream. क्या करना है कुछ नहीं, पैसा दे देते हैं, एटीएम में पैसा लगाते हैं, पैसा आ जाता है, यहाँ खर्चा कर रहे हैं. It's such a secure life, I can't tell you. We have slogged a lot. Somebody was telling that हमको आज तो इंटरनेट का टाइम है, you write and
I think we lost Vishal.
You know, I'd just like to weigh in on one thing, you know.
Sure, Ayush.
So, you know, now there are, so is Vishal's back on?
yeah.
Right. So, you know, now we have, sorry.
Vishal, no, that's
Somebody's
I
speaking.
think he's
Yeah.
kind of coming and going.
Sorry, I got disconnected.
No worries.
So
Please,
what I
Vishal.
was saying is, let me come to style you are talking about. Style तो तब आएगी जब आप एक चीज को प्रैक्टिस करके डेवलप करते हैं.
Right.
स्टाइल कॉपी करने से तो नहीं है. तो यहाँ तो एफर्ट ही नहीं डालने के लिए तैयार हैं.
So you're saying the hard work is missing? Ayush, would you take it on? I think.
I would like to add here. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Satish.
Yeah. So it's because since we run an academy, we have around 200 plus students are there. Like what Vishal said, it's absolutely right. Today's younger generation, they really don't want to hold the pencil in their hand to draw something actually. And if we give them an assignment per day, you need to bring minimum of 50 sketches. They give up in 2 days. That's it. They really don't want to do it. That's the kind of attitude they have. And as well as because of all these internet world, half the kids, they don't have a proper guidance how to effectively utilize these internet kids. So they'll get more hooked on. So they start teaching the faculty itself by looking at some YouTube, and they come and say, no, this is not the way, this is the way. So this is the kind of an approach the younger generation has. But those who are really passionate and they're really practicing. So I'm telling all the students out there, in India, if you want to do medical or engineering, so you have like more than 10,000 universities across India, actually, either one of these things. But imagine these fine arts colleges or design colleges, you can simply count. I would say not even like 50, 60 good design and fine arts colleges are there in India.
Right.
So all the students who are coming out of this particular institutes, they have multidisciplinary options to take. The only thing you need to keep your passion going, and you need to practice your skill sets actually.
Right.
So, to acquire any skills, and if you want to master that particular skills, the thing says like you need to have minimum of 3,000 hours of a practice. You continuously do the same thing. Even if you want to do a straight line, you do 3,000 straight lines. I'm sure 3,001 will be perfect actually. So that's the same principle you'll have to apply for all the aspects. Whatever you want to do, you have the passion, you have the creative sense, identify what you want, where the skill sets you wanted to improve, and start focusing more on that and practice. Within 5 to 6 years, you will reach to a greater height.
You know, I have a slightly odd take on this. You know, very often, like this is a grouse that I had against a lot of the younger, people who join my office that you can't draw. But then I figured that, no, it's not that they cannot draw, it is that I can draw. And that became the kind of a limitation in my communication, because I'd say, okay, make a drawing and show to me. Because these kids would draw something in 3D much faster than I would be able to draw it in sort of, physically. And if it's in 3D, they can rotate it, they can think a lot more. So, at times as a design person from, that era, I feel that, if we are in touch with what is happening, the speed of thinking itself has gone higher, it's gone faster. The speed of being able to resolve something is that much more. So at times I feel my necessity to hold a pencil in my hand to even think is actually my limitation. And probably when we have the younger students coming in, if you open the canvas up a little bit more, let us see what are the, they might face limitations when they come to my age and say, oh, this guy can just think, make a drawing by just thinking. They don't even have to touch a keyboard. So, that would be a thing that evolves. So the new set of skills that are coming up that we have to be in touch with might be completely different. So today, we have computers, we have robots, artificial intelligence that can write perfectly legible essays. Writing an essay is a deep, involved intellectual exercise, and a computer can do it. We have graphic designers who are being replaced so fast because AI is there.
Generating, sure.
It's
developing.
So the new skills that we're looking at, if people do want to keep their professions and stretch it, would probably lie in something that is uniquely human. So what are the human skills? What are the skills that make us who we are as a people, as a culture? Things like making a community, talking to groups, refining how you use language. Those I feel are skills that design people will absolutely most necessarily need, and not necessarily a skill of doing something. And I think that is where the design as a profession, I feel, has got a much wider canvas, because a design person is then trained to organize. And when we say organize, well, the constitution is an act of organization.
Sure.
How we do accounting is an act of organization. So how do design people get to the basics of how structures are created? How are things made for perpetuation? Our DNA is a form of organization.
Sure.
So the area of learning that new students would have is absolutely massive if they choose to take it so.
I totally agree with you. At the same time, what I'm trying to make a point here, they are learning, they are coming up with the new technology and all those things without the backup of any of these knowledge actually. So my submission is they have to understand. Today you're talking about the graphic design, AI is there. Who has built that AI? It's not the technology people have not built that AI. There is a lot of artistic people behind it. So whether you want to be that creator or you want to be a user, so that has to be defined by the person actually. If you really want to be a creator, then you need to think from here actually.
Yeah,
that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because they need to jump the gun and
correct
on that side, and for that they need a whole new set of skills to think and organize.
Correct.
And also the fact that that A for aesthetics is actually been replaced by T for technology.
Technology,
sure.
Yes.
So
T for technology there's no divergences, there are only convergences. Absolutely.
No, but the challenge here is, Swaroop, that this entire technology was not there 8 years back.
Sure.
All these tools were not there 8 years back. So today, if the stylus has replaced the pencil, because it's more convenient. Like Ayush said, that they can get faster drawings and more drawings and more sheets in 1 hour than actually physically doing it. And then you have a lot of options to edit and recast and all of that, and that's so instant.
But tell me something. If there are like technology is running so fast and coming up with solutions to things faster than we adapt to skill sets, how do we cope? Like as an educational institute,
we will have to take a relook at the curriculum.
Right.
Most of the curriculums.
What do you suggest? Right.
Curriculums are about 40% outdated.
Right.
Seriously.
40%.
No, let me be modest and say about 40%. Yeah. And you see, another challenge which technology has brought in is that it's made people very, myopic. So your entire connection with the community that you work and live in is disconnected. No, there's a huge disconnect.
That's what Ayush was also saying. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very, very relevant point which Ayush made. So, and so there's a disconnect. You're not going out there and not connecting with the community. You do not know influences. You do not know preferences, right? And you have technology. You have the superpower of technology. Okay, and you have Google Baba. Today, actually, kids are not scared of submission deadlines. Please recall your design school days, where you would actually, relentlessly say, "Yaar, kal submission karna hai, kaise hoga? Ye professor pagal hai." Right? But today they're not scared. It's, yeah, sir, we'll submit it, not to worry. Because they know there's Google Baba, there's a lot of technology, there's everything is there. So why next day 5 p.m. they can do it much before that? And that is what is actually killing the drive.
Right.
You know, because you're not going, you're not taking a step further. You're not going beyond your limits. You're not pushing your limits. Because you are already confined by technology, so you're only thinking about options. Because if you have to redo a design, the first question which comes into your mind is, will my iPad allow this? And,
but would it not be something that the faculty or the teachers should then draw out, as in what is the technology does not do?
Ayush, students today,
I'm just saying, if it's a calculator, I don't need to calculate, right? Like I would use a calculator. So then I'll think beyond it, isn't it? It just expedites the work. But certain skill sets become obsolete. I mean, so maybe that's the same reason why I don't remember 10-digit mobile numbers. You know, so fair enough. But I don't need to remember numbers.
Yeah, but the point which Vishal made, today these students have a very comfortable life.
Yes.
There's no struggle. There's no struggle, believe you me.
See,
you know,
as
it's absolutely a very sorted life. You know, the other day I have a student and who was very recklessly handling his phone set, which is about an Apple 1 lakh rupee phone. So I said, be careful, you know, if you drop it, it's going to break. You know what he told me? He said, sir, don't worry, I'll ask my dad and he'll get me. Probably the parent is using a 16,000 rupees phone.
No, but if you ask that kid, he'll probably have his own list of them too. So I think it's unfair to just say that they are being casual and limited just to technology. I think it's a balance we need to reach.
Yes.
And that balance has to be for us too. Like I've stopped using drawing. Like you said, I've stopped drawing for the last 5 years because my team is capable of producing these. But my strength is to shop for and not say, hey, I'm a good designer, I've been here for so many years, but to actually figure out, I hide behind racks like a useless lady in shop. I want to hear what is the buyer saying, what is the result on what is on the ground level, what is the peon, what is the sales girl saying when they're selling my clothes, are they draping it? Because that's what that indefined, that, you know, that fifth taste, that umami is, that makes design special, right? And at the same time with technology, and with that youngster who is going to want his Apple iPhone 13 and 14 also. And I think it's that we have to straddle for ourselves as well as the kid. Today, the students, it's from both sides. I think that challenge is faced by both sides today.
Yeah, I think the challenge is addressed now, because like we are talking about the entire education system. That's one of the main reasons that new NEP has come. Because what are we talking here? It's the foundation given during the school days. We are not giving importance to the art or performing arts or these things. So that's where once students.
I think we lost Satish. Priyanka, you were saying something.
I was saying, Swaroop, that actually I'll play devil's advocate and I'll say that thank God for the technology that one has, because we have all agreed, and there is no debate, that our curriculum is way too backdated. There is way too many gaps. So at least the student has access to the world via technology. Today, you can sit anywhere in the world. You can be in any remote corner. And if you have interest, you will find out about a certain practice, something that's happening. You will be on live stream. If you have, you know, these days, the leading practitioners, designers, fashion houses, galleries, artists are so accessible. It's like a one-on-one. If you have a question, you have the courage, you can go and ask, and you can also have a relationship with that person. As far as visual arts go, that you can literally, like the Yokohama Triennial open now post-COVID, and you could really walk with the curator. You could book a slot and you can sit in Calcutta and walk with the curator, with them telling you this is what's happening. So at least the student has this. And you know, so if the schools aren't going to change, and we understand it's a whole infrastructural change that we're talking about, which is not necessarily in a group of 10 well-meaning people who think that change is needed, so they bring it in the way they teach the curriculum. But what they basically need is systemic change. Systemic change doesn't happen overnight.
Happens so fast. Sure.
But we need access now, and technology provides that access. So that privileged kid who has the iPhone or somebody who has a basic connection elsewhere is connected, and that's important.
I would want to share one more challenge that design institutions are facing today, thanks to technology, is plagiarism. Plagiarism has really gone up. Really gone up. So what we understood as inspiration in design has actually been replaced by copying.
Right.
You know, that is going up. So today we are looking at softwares which can actually, you know, detect plagiarism in an assignment.
Sure.
Right? So these are new challenges for academics.
You know, at times I feel that, you know, the act of education itself, you know, by the time a student joins and when they leave, they're already post-dated. They're already, their skills that are not there. And the actual role of education would probably be to prepare them, not for just when they're finished, but for at least 5 years or 10 years after they've finished.
Right.
So it is that leap that education has to make, you know, jump it by 15 years.
And also, Ayush, taking it from you, just to add that, you know, and that's perhaps the difference between an educational institute and a training institute. That someone's making you market ready, but an educational institute need to make you be able to think forward. So I think, and that distinction's not being made perhaps at the moment, you know, and not as effectively as it should.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, to the educators in our panel, hasn't it been this, when, you know, with this pandemic and online teaching, because I am a mother to 2 young children, and I can see their school has made like a mountain change in the way they teach, share, and learn. And I can imagine this is true for the courses that you have to teach now, because you have to use technology to be able to teach the same curriculum. Has there been a change in the way you're thinking and presenting?
Priyanka, I also
Oh yes.
Yeah, Murtaza, sorry.
But the challenge, Priyanka, here is that how effective is this teaching? Even I have a daughter who studies in school, and you know that whole the classroom experience cannot be actually replaced.
Sure.
Now we are all doing classes also because otherwise we will not get the fees. Let's face it. Let's face it.
Another challenge is we are talking about teaching actually. So if you see all our skill sets, it requires training actually. So that we will not be able to do it online actually. So probably teaching will be able to do it, but our type of an education, design education, it's
practical is very difficult. Very difficult to do practical classes.
Yes, that is where the huge challenge is actually.
So
where
I wanted to add to what you're saying that, you know, let's say if anyone's worked in an export firm, you know, we get spec sheets which used to come from across the globe, and it was so detailed that you would follow instruction and you wouldn't go wrong.
Absolutely.
But, you know, because you have accessibility, you take that for granted. You know, you don't go into that detail. So I think the teachers will also have to adapt to certain modes of communication, which then becomes more, you know, more structured than it is when you have someone in front of you and you can explain it more organically. But it's also a skill that we will have to imbibe, you know, and not only the students. We also need
especially in the area of art and design, it's very difficult to replicate the entire experience online.
I think I'd ask Vishal the same question. I use just a second because Vishal is, you know, in Shantiniketan, and I'm sure the students are home, and I don't know how they're dealing with it at the moment. Has it been easy?
No, it's not easy in the sense we are giving them assignments and they are doing these assignments. But the issue that I want to talk about is nobody is denying role of technology in today's world. But technology, as Satish said, comes from brain. And this needs stimulation, and unless you do things hands-on, you cannot generate idea. Idea generation is much bigger than how to do things. So that is one point. And then I have heard this from my guru कि मरने के लिए स्वर्ग देखना है तो मरना पड़ेगा, और ये लोग मरने के लिए तैयार नहीं है. हाँ, मरे बिना स्वर्ग नहीं दिखता है. You have to die to see heavens. So, but they are not, they want to see heaven, but they don't want to die. And this will never happen. So all those who want to venture into this creative domain, they should be willing to die. Die in this sea of creativity, drawing, everything has to be there. It's a sadhana. It's like singing. If you don't do riyaz, you cannot sing. Sa nahi lagega. It's as simple as that. यदि आप प्रैक्टिस नहीं करते हैं, आप कितना भी अच्छा टेक्नोलॉजी जानते हो, कितना अच्छा भी माया जानते हो, कितना अच्छा भी फोटोशॉप जानते हो, यदि ड्राइंग नहीं करना आता गुरुजी, तो कुछ नहीं है. Basic.
So I think drawing is a tool of imagination. It's not a tool of representation.
So one example,
said, Ayush,
example I just wanted to bring here about the technology and the art. For example, I'm sure all of us would have watched this film called Bahubali actually. Okay, so there are around 1,200 artists have worked on this almost 1.5 years to create that masterpiece. And the man behind that film is an NID student, Sanat. Sanat is the art director for that, and he is a very close friend of mine.
Right.
So you can see the masterpiece when the art and the technology marry together, what you can get actually. So we can literally beat. So this is what they used to produce in Hollywood because they have that budget. So when somebody has taken an initiative in India to give that kind of a budget, this is what art and technology can create, not only in that films, it can create in each and every field actually.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Sure. So I think we had a very interesting discussion, but because we've come to a point where we need to wrap up, I'd like all of you to just make your concluding remarks, just keeping in mind the pandemic and the situations which is to come, and what you think the students should get up to, and how do they look at sort of career in the creative fields. Kiran, would you like to go first, if that's okay?
Sure. I think coming back to what jobs are available at this time, or what one would look at, I go back to what I'm saying. I said earlier that I would pay a premium for people who were looking at, things like waste management, using upcycle design, not as in just sustainability, but also design that's
you're looking, saying that there needs to be, whatever are the
situation.
constraints, they need to kind of make advantage from there, see opportunities in those constraints.
And and within your, you have little boutiques. The small business has not to be like ours, should not be forgotten. We need people like that who will actually take the katran or take whatever extra beads and things and utilize it. And for us, that would be a very, very premium job we would hire even at this time. And I have no doubt that many organizations, if you said that I'm a designer who specializes in the waste of your organization, that would work, right? Or for example, we've lost the magic of real world shows. We don't know where that's going to happen, when that's going to happen next. Real world fashion shows, it's all gone virtual now, right? And we still have to see whether that works. So a videographer who will actually be able to videograph your work in the studio and then take it out to your clients. That is again what the new post-COVID world is looking
Kiran,
at.
are you saying that these are also skill sets if you have as a part of your design understanding and portfolio? I mean, you're saying that a young designer who has an understanding.
And it's about learning on the job.
Sure. Ayush, what's your views on?
Yes, absolutely. They've learned a basic amount, and then you adapt to today's world.
Right.
So given the unique situation we are in, I think we have to make the most of opportunities. Some of the panelists spoke about recreating a class. I'd say, why recreate? We have a completely new canvas. So do what a recreation cannot do what a classroom cannot do.
Right.
And likewise for you, Learn what you cannot learn in a classroom. Observe. Most likely you're sitting at home. See how the kitchen operates. See how things are organized within your home. Why are they the way they are? Look outside your window. What's the street? Those are things that I personally grew up seeing, observing, and it helps me even till this date. Because no matter what you do, the consumer of your design is a living person. I think this is a great time to just observe. See how things are happening around you. Without putting a judgment or without putting your design skills into it, just observe. Because no matter how much, we very often try, get a superiority. I know how to design and you are not, aesthetically inclined. I think it's time for us to take that hat off and see how things really are. See the beauty that exists. For people in Bengal, you're in the land of magic, absolute magic. The Durga Puja is something which is the most mind-boggling, amazing freaking festival in the world. Prepare for it. It's around the corner. Imagine how you'd like to do it. Give yourself assignments that a college might never ever give you. And go out and do it, because the future is uncertain, but it's in your hands. And that one certainly will always remain.
When you say it's in your hand, Ayush, we all know how fear gets. When it gets you, it gets you. And in a situation where there are so many competing and so few getting employed, it's also a real-time fear. So a lot of time, things that are important get shelved with things that are urgent, right? And a lot of time when you're ready to graduate, the urgency is perhaps to pursue a career or make a living. How do we balance this out, between sort of looking at things which are important to develop a larger vision, as opposed to also looking at how will I survive in the next 2 months? Both are very pertinent situations at the moment.
Yeah, but the thing is, both have got the same answer.
Mm-hmm.
Tighten your belt. Move on. Things are going to be the way that things are going to be. Move on, tighten your belt, and keep walking. Sometimes you just have to shut your eyes, put the blinkers on. This is what you need to get done. Do it. Get those ridiculous questions out. Get the fear out. Get the uncertainty out. It doesn't really help you, does it?
Sure.
So put it to one side and do what you need to do. Do what you must. And I think that sort of gutsy drive, big-headedness is a great quality to have and build on right now.
Thanks, Ayush. Satish, what are your views? What are you looking at? What would you suggest to young professionals who are going to be out there, either looking for a career or just to the onset of their career?
Yeah, because young budding artists out there, so there may be a lot of students who might be doing currently design courses. One thing I just wanted to say is, irrespective of whichever field, the most important aspect in this world, if you wanted to survive in any of the field, is creativity. Actually, if you're a creative person, no matter whether you're in an artistic field or whichever field, you'll be able to really survive. Whether you are a CA or even a doctor, you need to think creatively so that you are able to succeed. Number two is the artistic knowledge. When I say artistic knowledge and artistic skill set, these are two different aspects. Artistic knowledge, that is what you learn when you are joining a design school, 4 years of a degree which you are doing. You learn the entire artistic knowledge, what are different kinds of art and all those things. Unless and until you put that into practice, your skill set will not improve actually.
Sure.
Okay. When we've been running this institute for almost like 5 years now, our institute. Before COVID, whenever we talk to students, whenever we tell them to do some assignments, they always come up with the excuse saying that, sir, हमारे पास time नहीं है, sir, हमको ये काम था, वो काम था. Imagine for the past 5-6 months, God is kind, given you enough of time.
So much time.
Sitting at home. First, you have to discover yourself, what you want to become. If you really want to practice, take this artistic knowledge and creativity and apply your skill sets. Practice. You have enough of time. And then when you come out after the COVID, use the technology. And within no time, I'm sure nobody has to tell you, you'll be reaching somewhere in a greater height.
Satish, I have to ask you something in particular. What is the treatment for procrastination? you know.
There's no treatment actually, so per se. So, you need to first think. First,
No, I
what
know, we all know we had 5 months, but you know what we do with the 5 months is completely on how we manage the time. No?
No, so that's what I'm saying. So whatever you're passionate, you
Sometimes
by now you might
Netflix
have.
is more gratifying than sitting and sketching. So
Yeah, for people like us, probably we might have a lot of oscillation because we are into business also. We are actually, we
sure.
wanted to make money. We don't have cash flows, a lot of issues, problems going on. But kids, you don't have any problems. All the problems are with your parents actually.
Sure.
So just get rid of all those problems, enjoy this moment, try to help. Even at home also, whatever work you do it passionately and get into the attention for detail actually. Even it is a small work, household work, don't take it as granted. Okay, do karne ke liye karna hai. Don't do it. Make it a practice that whatever you do, I'm giving 200% and I'm making it as a point. It's attention to detail. I'm doing it. So that practice, these are the practice which is really going to give you great career. And of course, if you are having a great career, you don't have to run behind money. The money will run behind you.
That's very well said, Satish. Thank you. Students who would be either aspiring to get into design college or the ones who are getting out, what would you suggest for them? How do they cope with challenges of the future? You know, how do they, what should they do? Vishal, can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. I have a little story to share. Actually, my journey that will be very interesting. Actually, I was a normal student, and I failed in class 9th, and I ran away from my house, and I was found on some railway station by police and handed over to my parents. And I was a creative child, and creativity has no room in schools. So drawing अच्छा करता है, गाना अच्छा गाता है, तबला बजाता है, so what? So these are not skills. Mathematics में कितना मिला, geography में कितना मिला, physics में कितना मिला, this was the story. So बहुत कष्ट करके मैंने 12th standard पास किया. Then मेरा drawing skill देख के मेरे parents को किसी ने कहा let him go to NIT, let him go to NIFT. I appeared for NIT, I didn't get through. Then I applied for Shantiniketan. I came here, I did my bachelor's, applied for INLACS, got INLACS, went to do my master's in England, worked with Antonio Ratti in Italy, came and taught at NIT, then went to Australia, went to New Zealand. So it's a long story. And then became advisory of new education policy. So new education policy mein I lobbied and said कि ये creative subjects एक बच्चे के specialization के लिए होना चाहिए. So now 11th and 12th में बच्चे drawing ले सकते हैं, painting ले सकते हैं, music ले सकते हैं, and that will be treated as a mainstream subject, not as subsidiary subject. That is a big battle I have fought for almost 10 years. And in new education policy, you would see that these things are actually implemented. They got implemented. So what I would say that we need passionate people. Passion is what is missing in these students. भूख नहीं है, वो लड़ने की हिम्मत नहीं है. That is what is missing. Passion is missing. If you have passion, and even if you are 60, you can study again and do your class 10th and 12th. You see, many people are doing it. They are not from Mars. They are also from same planet. So बहुत सारे लोग यहाँ सवाल कर रहे हैं कि मैंने ये पढ़ा है, जैसे अभी किसी और ने भी कहा कि मैंने ये पढ़ाई की पर मैं ये कर सकता, क्यों नहीं कर सकते? कर सकते हैं, बट वो पैशन है क्या? वही फिर अगेन आई विल कम बैक टू सेम स्टोरी, मरना पड़ेगा. यदि मरने के लिए तैयार है, then you will see स्वर्ग. स्वर्ग तभी देखने मिलेगा यदि आप मरेंगे. So that is the basic.
Vishal, I wanted to ask you, when you get students, do you get some students who are motivated from beginning, but do you also see transformation that, you know, like maybe somewhere after 2 years, suddenly you see a switch in a student and they become more motivated? Does that happen?
6 months. There is a girl there was a girl in my class. वो मेरा क्लास 9:30 बजे चालू होता है, मतलब 9:30 बजे, मतलब आपको घड़ी मिला सकते हो. आई एम शार्प देयर at 9:30. you can be sure. और ये लड़की कभी 10 बजे से पहले नहीं आती थी क्लास में, तो इसको मैंने बहुत बार भगा दिया कि नहीं, I won't repeat my lecture for you, you go back. And I humiliated, चप्पल घिस घिस के चलना, बैग नीचे, सर आज ये लेट हो गया, आज सोने में देरी हो गई, कल रात को देरी से सोए. और 6 महीने में उस लड़की ने नेक्स्ट मेरा क्लास जब उसके साथ था, उसने जो ड्राइंग दिखाया, आई सेड ये तुम्हारा ड्राइंग किसने किया? You have no, you can't reach up to this level. And all her class stood और बोला कि नहीं सर ये उसी का ड्राइंग है. ये 6 महीने में वो केवल ड्राइंग ही कर रही है और कुछ नहीं करती. And she is excellent, means beyond comprehension. Now एक टाइम था कि मैं उसको सोच रहा, उसके पेरेंट्स को बोल दिया था कि आपको निकाल लीजिए इसको यहाँ से, आप अपना पैसा खराब कर रहे हैं और इसका टाइम खराब कर रहे हैं और हमारी भी एनर्जी जाती है. ऐसे एक बच्चा आ जाता है तो ये पूरा दिन खराब कर देता है. सुबह सुबह चिल्लाना हमको नहीं अच्छा लगता. अब ले जाइए इसको. वो बच्ची आज नाउ शीज वो पूछ रही है कि अभी मुझे इंटर्नशिप करना है, वो सेरामिक्स पढ़ रही है, मैं जापान में किसके पास जाऊं सेरामिक्स सीखने के लिए, आप बताइए मुझे, और मास्टर्स नहीं करना है इंडिया. सो शी हैज रीच्ड अप टू दैट लेवल. सो ये होता है और उससे देख के अब दूसरे स्टूडेंट्स इंस्पायर हो रहे हैं. There are cases, yeah, there are cases. मतलब ऐसा नहीं है सारे ही गधे, पर मतलब अब मैं वो और यहाँ बोलना नहीं चाहता हूँ. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, Vishal. So, Amartada, what's your advice, being on the other side, as to when the students are going to, either the ones who are coming into your fold or the ones who are leaving your fold, what's your advice for them?
So what this pandemic has made us realize is that one quality which all of us, whether we are students or whatever, we must have it, and very strong, is adaptability. Yeah. The way we had to adapt. And we are adapting probably every day.
Amartada, we can't hear you.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So, so in the month of March, when my final year students were deep neck down in their final year graduation projects, and you know how for any design school student, the graduate ceremony or the graduate portfolio or the graduate show is extremely close to their heart,
right?
And which could not happen this year,
right?
Which could not happen. We actually had to do a virtual graduation meet.
Right.
So, right. So I actually told people that probably you are one batch passing out in 90 years, 100 years, who had a virtual graduation meet because you could not have had a physical graduation meet. So this pandemic has taught us a lot of things. So adaptability is one thing which is very important. Inner quest for excellence that we've been talking about. And that is your own quest. So that is all that about, signature style or your own identity through your creative outcome. Everything comes from there. So that inner quest, that passion, extremely important. All your assignments in the first 6 months of your design school may be dumped by your faculty, and faculty might tell you go back.
Right.
And like Vishal just gave that example, that in 6 months there was a huge transformation, and and you cannot give up. If you're passionate, if you have that self-belief, keep to it, and you will definitely achieve your goal. So that's one, and they have, one has to read more, observe more, be connected to the community, which is extremely important, because design as a discipline or art as a discipline, there are a lot of inferences that we take from the surrounding. Right. There are a lot of inspirations that we draw from surroundings. So if I'm not going out, let's say for example, my own city, like Ayush gave the example of Durga Puja, which is a very apt example. Or let's say the old Jaipur city.
Right.
Unless you've taken a walk down the bylanes, there are possibly hundreds of inspirations lying there.
Absolutely.
So that is extremely important, and and adaptability has now become very, very important. So one has to be kind of open to, you know, ideas, skills, and all of that.
Opportunities, challenges. Sure.
Yes, yes, yes. For example, let's say people who've completed fashion design this year, the opportunities are very less right now, because most of the production units are shut.
Right.
Right, people are not taking in new freshers, right? So then you know, they can't be sitting at home. So now then we are putting them into, let's say, jobs which are for fashion blogging, where people are hiring because there is demand for online content, right? So that adaptability is extremely important.
Thank you, Amrita. Priyanka, your closing comments, you know, for youngsters who want to pursue art, and also the ones who are, you know, maybe just sort of graduating out, they're going to go into the professional world, also at a time which is more challenging, you know, what would you advise them?
So I'll say two different things. One is, the more challenging the time, the more relevant it is for the visual arts. So this sort of a completely time will hopefully create artwork that, you know, a lot of us will live with, for many generations. But if you ask me for one advice for the generation that is now passing out, or are, you know, hoping to be aspirants, or, you know, aspiring practitioners, I'd just say read as much as you can and as widely as you can. Apart from everything else that my co-panelists have said today, which are all absolutely relevant, very, very important, but nothing more important within the arts and design than to be sort of cross-referenced. Design, history, physics, chemistry, politics, literature, anything that you can read, do read. You need to have contrarian views, and the only way to do it is in-depth reading and understanding with your own mind, not what you're fed. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. So I think we have come to
I just have one request to all the panelists.
Yes, Satish,
so I
please.
just would like to, because all of them are great artists and they meet students, I want you people to at least spread the word of this World Skills Olympics.
Sure.
So this happens once in 2 years. The next Olympics is happening in China in 2021, Shanghai. I don't know whether we'll be representing, because as of today it is still on, but we have already shortlisted the candidate. The next one is 2023. It's going to be in France, Lyon. So there is a huge amount of selection process happens. There is 5 rounds of selection process. For example, last year graphic design candidate, we selected Sweta Ratanpura. She is the national winner, not winner, runner-up. The winner was one of the NIFD students. So 1,200 applicants. Out of 1,200 applicants, she was the winner in nationals. And after that, she undergoes another 1 year of a training. So this is a tremendous platform. The age criteria is the student should not cross 21 years at the time of competition. For example, during 2023, if somebody is applying, they should not cross 21 years at the time of competition. It's a tremendous amount of platform. And last year, Sweta Ratanpura, she got only cash money of almost 10 lakhs rupees from Indian government because of winning this bronze medal. Apart from that, she is today working in one of the biggest multinational company as a designer. And because I saw in one of the messages, one person has put, I'm a 5 years experienced graphic designer, I'm still struggling for a job. So at the same time, there is a case like this. She's working in some multinational company. Not only she, there are a lot of other, my 2013 candidate, he's an entrepreneur, he has his own design studio. Around 200 people are working. So it's not about like the number of years of experience. It's about how do you acquire the skill and how do you actually like all these. Today we are talking about A for aesthetics. You have that aesthetic knowledge and go to these kind of a big platform, win for the country, you get recognized, automatically your career will build.
Thanks, Satish. Thank you so much.
Spread this to all the students, your students, and they can probably apply for 2023.
I'm sure that would be lovely. We should have better representation for the country.
Yeah.
Thanks, Satish.
Thank you.
So to all who are attending the session, I hope, the discussion gave you some insights on how to approach the life which is ahead of you. We did discuss issues which is based on the fact that, you need to be sincere about what you're doing. Also the fact that you need to have adaptable skills now, and we all need to look at this situation not as a threat, but as an opportunity. The fact also remains that we should be able to acquire a wide range of knowledge and understanding, which then we can apply, and we don't know how, in which way. And I think each individual, instead of becoming sort of a factory packaged, sort of product, can become an individual who have individual skill sets, and interests, and that if I'm employing someone, I'm also looking at someone who has a certain personality, right? Who has something unique to offer. And that can only come if you have, a conviction about yourself and what you're doing. So I hope this discussion was helpful. I saw that a lot of questions which were coming in, but we were so engrossed in the conversation that we couldn't take too many questions. But I hope that the conversation in some way addressed the questions. I know a lot of questions came which were to do with how do we start up a company, how do we start up, and they were all sort of specific questions to a specific field, and obviously that also requires a certain, you can't have general answer in that, but obviously adaptable skill is something that emerged as a solution. Also the fact that we need to balance between our skill sets and also use of technology, which is becoming important. So if you have a certain skill set which you think would be valuable the years to come, would be something that companies would look at, that would be great. So thank you very much to everyone on the panel. Thank you for coming on, and thank you ABP Education for this lovely opportunity for us to come and discuss this for the kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
ABP.
you all.
Thank you, team.
Namaskar.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Swaroop. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.